Hey, welcome back. If you're anything like me and you're watching an episode of Double Dare, you would always get annoyed when the kids would just answer the questions. Yeah, you know a lot about Fraggle Rock. Big deal. I want you to get to the physical challenge. So, in honor of that, we're going to look at 3 games where you have to do something physical to play the game. Start the clock. Glyphics is a word-guessing game for 3 or more players, in which players use an assortment of plastic line objects to form a tableau that will allow the other players to guess their word. Each player gets a single card to start. This is the only card they will have for the whole game. Each card has 4 nouns, 1 verb, and 1 phrase. The game will last 5 rounds, so players can plan which of the 6 clues they want to give and which one won't be attempted. On a player's turn, after selecting which word they want to attempt, a 60-second timer is started, and they must use the objects, and only the objects, to describe their word. They may not speak or make noises or use their body to gesture or point at things. The only pointing allowed is through the use of this arrow, and the only gestures allowed are to nod or point at someone who's on the right track. You're also not allowed to spell words out with the shapes. What is allowed is 3D construction through the use of this stand, as well as moving the pieces around to act out a scene. You can be as elaborate as you want, but if the 60 seconds run out before someone guesses the word or phrase, no points are scored. If the word is guessed successfully, however, both the guesser and the active player score a point. If it was the phrase that was successfully guessed, both players score 2 points. This continues until all the players have had 5 turns, after which the player with the most points wins. There are a handful of rules variants included in the box, including playing without a timer, or playing with all 6 words on a card, but the most interesting is a team mode, where 2 clue givers, one from each team, attempt the challenge simultaneously. Before the timer starts, they take turns drafting pieces that they're allowed to use for the clue. The 108 cards seem varied, and even the more difficult phrases should be understood by the 10-year-old younger players suggested on the box. The ability to skip one of the clues on the card is useful for those younger players as well. Glyphics shares many similarities with other word-guessing games, but the exclusive use of the plastic pieces produces some unique aspects as well. The shapes, while simple, are quite varied in shape and size, and there aren't many exact duplicates. There never seem to be enough of a particular piece to make the scene I'm trying to do. Being able to animate a scene allows for some creative uses of the pieces as well. Of course, whether or not you're able to convey what you have in your head with the pieces at hand is the key to the game. The 30-minute time frame on the box is a little misleading, as each player gets to go 5 times, and with no upper limit on the player count, that could add up with a particularly large group. That said, Glyphics does what a party game should do: provide an easy barrier to entry with just enough of a twist to keep things interesting. This is going to see playtime at future family gatherings. 6.5 out of 10.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Konexi is a word-building dexterity game for 2 to 6 players, in which you must build a tower out of plastic letters, and then make words from the letters that are connected to each other. There are 26 letter pieces, 1 for each letter of the alphabet. These are shuffled and placed in a loose circle around the table. The marker piece starts between any 2 letters. On a player's turn, they roll the die, which ranges from 2 to 10, and moves the marker clockwise that number of spaces. If they get the any letters side, they can place the marker anywhere. Then they must take one of the 2 letters on either side of the marker, and using only one hand, add it to the tower. The first letter will simply be placed on the table, but future letters must be notched to another letter in the tower and cannot touch the table. Each letter has a number of tongues and grooves, and a placement is only legal if the letter is fully engaged with another. This is illegal. This is perfect. If the tower falls, the player loses 3 points from their score, the letters are reshuffled, and the game continues with the next player starting a new tower. Once the new letter is integrated into the tower, the player may make a word that includes the new letter. Any standard English word is legal, but proper names and foreign words are out. You need to be able to make a direct connection between all the letters in the word, though the letters don't need to be in order. In this case, tower is a legal word, even with the letters mixed up, but citadel is not, because there's an X in the way. The word scores 1 point for each letter, so the longer you can make your word, the better. This score is added to the player's running total. Keep in mind that while making a word is optional, adding a letter to the tower is not, so you're almost always in danger of taking a penalty. The game continues until one player claims victory by scoring 20 points. Konexi is both unique and familiar, delightfully tactile, yet frustratingly limiting at times. The letter pieces are large and chunky. Building the tower is satisfying indeed, and it's fun to simply see how sprawling a structure you can make without keeping score. Building words can be tough sometimes, especially if you're often stuck with a small tower after someone else has knocked it over. There's also only so much one can do when faced with a choice between adding a Q and a K to the tower. If you can't make a good word, though, there's always the offensive approach, trying to make the tower just unstable enough that the next player will have a tough time building anything. Having only one of each letter can be frustrating as well, as it severely limits the words one can create and makes the vowel pieces extremely important. While the trapezoidal box is a little unwieldy, the game comes with a travel pouch that makes bringing this to game night easy. Despite its flaws, the novelty of Konexi means that in my home, you'll often find giant branching towers of letters just waiting to tumble to the ground. 7 out of 10. Without Fail is a challenge-based party game in which players attempt to complete silly stunts while their opponents make the challenge as difficult as possible. Inside the box is a lot of stuff. In addition to cards and point tokens, you'll find cups, a ball, a tee for putting the ball on, dice, a pad of paper, a pen, a blindfold, and a 30-second timer. Everybody starts with one of the point tokens, and the goal is to be the first to get 5 of them. Players take turns being the challenger. They take the top card of the deck without looking at the back and set up the materials for the challenge as shown. The items could be set up on the table, on the floor, or against the wall. Next, the other players take turns making the challenge harder. The card explains exactly how to do that by moving objects further apart or naming higher or lower numbers. There's even a guide for approximately how difficult things will be for the challenger at a certain level. The other players take turns either making the challenge harder or dropping out. The last player to drop out is now the challenger's teammate. They are now invested in seeing the challenger complete the stunt successfully. Now, the card is flipped, and the challenger must immediately attempt the challenge. In this card, the challenger must roll up the paper into a golf club and then gets 3 strokes to put the ball in the cup. If the challenger succeeds, both they and their teammate get a point. If they fail, they both lose a point, and all other players gain a point. Then, it's the next player's turn to be the challenger. This continues until one player has 5 points. An alternate advanced rule that also works as a tiebreaker and 2-player rule set is Hero Mode, where all players make a challenge harder, and the last one standing has to attempt the challenge. If playing a standard game with this rule, it kicks in when one player has 4 points and is about to win. Hero Mode scoring also allows a player who is behind to steal points from anybody sitting at 4, which could be a way to catch up. Without Fail is a very silly game. The challenges are short and sometimes too easy or impossible, but there's no way of knowing that based on the setup. Multiple challenges will have identical setups, so you really don't know what you're doing until the card is flipped. Occasional frustration at the task in front of you is part of the game. The real key is the game of chicken that is making the challenge harder. The other players are motivated to make the challenge as difficult as possible, but someone is going to be left holding the bag and suddenly rooting for the challenger's success. This basically ensures that there's always 2 cheering sections, both for and against success, for every challenge. I should note that this game requires significant space. Some challenges require 10 to 15 feet of floor space or the ability to run around without knocking anything over. So, less appropriate for a crowded convention hall, but certainly a good pick for a youth group icebreaker, light family game day, or just a way to get the blood pumping after a sedate Euro game. 6.5 out of 10. All right, time to stack them up. This is my general sense of how I'm feeling about all three of these games. The bottom of the pile, I think, has to be the newest of the list, without fail. I need to be in the right mood for this game. It's very silly, and I need to be in a really silly mood to go there. Glyphics goes next. I think it's got a little bit more structure to it. I like the chaos of trying to get my ideas across with this pile of pieces. Really solid game, a lot of fun. But the top of the list is going to be Konexi. It's the most cerebral of the bunch, and trying to figure out which letter to add to the branching tower, and then how I'm going to get it to connect, what word I'm going to form when I get it up there. It's a lot of fun, and if you can find a copy, it would be my choice of these three. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.